When we think of a brand, we often think about a product, a logo, a slogan, all that kind of stuff. But I think a brand, in a way, is much more, but maybe some people would say it's much more simple than that. A brand is what you feel about something or someone before you can explain why. It's something that's been built up.
Welcome to the Warriors at Work show. This is Jeannie Coomber, your guide and host. This is a show for men and women in the workplace who want to move from the predictable to the potent. This is your weekly dose of inspiration with an edge. I talk with CEOs and shamans, sports marketing executives and therapists. All of us are like-minded thinkers and doers who tell stories, share wisdom, and challenge each other to have the best life possible inside and outside the office. Welcome to your Warrior Conversation.
Hey everybody, it's Jeannie. Thanks for joining me here. Today I'm bringing to you a conversation that is very topical with Anouk Pappers. She founded an organization in 2002 called CoolBrands, and that work was around going around the globe, interviewing over 900 CEOs, CMOs, and business leaders specifically on their brand and their personal stories. She published over 15 books bringing those interviews to life. And then in 2012, she saw an opportunity to shine a light on leaders that were outside of the spotlight. And it was through the process of acknowledging that most of the leaders she had interviewed were men. And that led her to co-create an organization called Signitt, which is a service dedicated to helping leaders outside the spotlight craft compelling personal narratives and increase their visibility. And today, a strong presence is essential to our credibility, our connection, our career growth, our networking. And in this conversation, Anouk gives us the playbook. She gives us the how-to. She offers some really powerful stories and experiences that I know you're going to find of value. So enjoy. Anouk, thank you so much for joining me, especially 8 o'clock Amsterdam time. So grateful for you stepping into this conversation. So welcome.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here.
I am particularly excited for this conversation because of the timeliness of it. As I've shared with you when we were preparing for this, is here we are at the beginning of 2026. It was a wild ride in 2025. There's so much applicability to this conversation we're going to have around storytelling, but I want to particularly highlight the importance of its applicability to anybody that is looking for a new opportunity or is in transition right now, because your insights, your expertise, and your wisdom is particularly powerful for that domain. But it's also translatable to all aspects of life inside and outside the office. So I feel really, really grateful that we connected and that we're here today. And so where I want to begin is, being that we're talking about storytelling, I want to first hear the story of Anouk. So how did you arrive into this moment?
Well, ever since I was a little girl growing up in Amsterdam, I've been intrigued by anything and anyone not like me. So growing up, the only choice I had was to study anthropology, become an anthropologist, because I was certain this is going to allow me to travel the world, discover cultures. But of course, that dream job did not exist. So in 2002, when I met my business partner, I said, I don't really care what we're going to do, but I want to travel the world. So me being an anthropologist, my business partner being having a background in marketing and branding, we said, what do we get if we combine that? So we said, storytelling. So we started in the Netherlands and then slowly expanding to Europe, United States. In 2008, because of the crisis that happened in the United States, we went south to Brazil. We covered kind of everywhere. And what we did is we started traveling the world and interview CEOs, CMOs, business owners, and we helped them tell their story. And it was never their story. It was always our story about them. And that third-party storytelling, as we call it, makes it more credible, and it makes it much easier to share. Because if you have to talk about yourself, say how great you are, it's kind of like, not looked at great. But if I talk about you and say how great you are, it becomes much more credible and easier to share. So that's what we started doing. So we traveled the world. We published a book with the best stories we encountered every year. Until in 2013, one of the CEOs I was interviewing in New York, he said, "It's great what you do for my brand, but I need you to do this for me. Because everybody is Googling me and I don't like what they see. So can you help me build my personal brand, professional brand, we'll talk about that later, craft my story, and build an online presence that reflects not where I've been, but really reflects where I want to go." Fast forward, that's the core of me, of how I got here. And we'll get to that probably later on as well. But curiosity, I think, is one of my keywords. It's just an unstoppable urge to discover new things and to go to new places. And that's what led me all around the world and currently residing, even though I'm in Amsterdam now, but residing in Miami.
Well, that's a lovely place to reside.
Mhm.
So you talked about the word branding, and I want to break it down, and I'd love for you to describe and define when you say the word branding, what does it mean? Because I think people get stuck on what it means, what it translates to. So I'd love for you to define it for us.
Yeah. When we think of a brand, we often think about a product, a logo, a slogan, all that kind of stuff. But I think a brand, in a way, is much more, but maybe some people would say it's much more simple than that. A brand is what you feel about something or someone before you can explain why. It's something that's been built up. Nike is not about shoes. It's about movement. It's about just do it. Apple is not about hardware. It's really about simplicity, taste, control. So a brand answers kind of the question, do I trust this? A brand is an identity, a definition. A brand helps us understand the world around us. Imagine that there were no brands and everything, let's say, is unbranded and so we only have products. Every time again, okay, I need a new smartphone. So you go to a store and you have no idea, there's like hundreds of choices. It's impossible. So brands help us understand the world around us. They help us make choices because of previous choices, previous experiences. It's exactly the same thing when you talk about a personal brand. If I know your values, if I know what you stand for, if I like you, I will then probably also trust you and want to connect with you. So again, it's our identity. I have sometimes indeed people who say, yeah, I hate brands. I'm not a brand. I'm just me. Whatever you call it, every professional is a brand. And we are being evaluated by the world around us as if we were an Apple or a Nike.
That is, it resonates on so many levels, because what I hear a lot around personal branding in particular is we give that away in that we allow other people to determine what our brand is. And the work that you do is taking back that control, taking back that power, and for you to define what you want others to experience. And when people technically hear in my circles, they talk about branding and digital presence, they often think polish. And I think what you're saying here is you have a very clear distinction on what you want people to understand brand to be. And it comes back to, how do you want others to receive you, think about you, refer to you? Do I have that right? Is that the correct evaluation of what you just said?
It is, and it all, it all helps you when I understand what I stand for and I am able to articulate that and to share that with you. It's going to help you understand who I am. So if I'm your leader, you will be a better employee. I will be a better leader because people understand who I am. So it goes upstream, downstream, side stream to all of your target audiences, all the people around you will understand better who you are. And we make a very clear distinction between what you do, which we in a way don't care about, but we care about who you are. If you think about the AI world that's surrounding us, the what of our jobs is becoming, in many cases, less important. The who we are, how we deal with people, how we are collegial, how we can support people, how we can lead people, that's becoming much more important. So that there's the distinction, and that is again that definition, if you like, of your brand and what it is that you bring.
So let's move into the storytelling piece, because that to me is like that's the channel in which you're sharing your brand. So you have over 20 years of doing this work, and I'm curious what you've noticed about how storytelling has evolved, both professionally and personally.
I have a great anecdote. So early in my career, I had a CEO that said to me, storytelling? I don't need storytelling. I'll tell stories to my kids at bedtime. I need a strategy, not a story. Okay, fast forward, another CEO. Everybody is Googling me, my suppliers Google me, my shareholders, my employees, and what they see is not a reflection of my story, my vision, and where I want to go. This is probably, I think the first one may have been around 2004-05, and this one is 2013. So it's like in 8 years. Nowadays, I dare to say that having your story is not a nice to have, it's a need to have. It's become a business imperative. If you don't have a story, nobody's going to be able to say or to refer you, is going to be able to say anything about you. So having moved that from that nice to have, or it's something I'll read to my kids when they go to sleep, to I need my story because as a CEO, I need my shareholders, all my stakeholders to join me on my journey to achieving our goals. You need a story. You cannot trust or rely on facts or information only.
Well, I want to go back into the story of you, and let's pull this out, because obviously you have this deep interest in others and curiosity and talking to people that were not like you. Was there something in your story where that really became paramount?
Yes, and of course it's always in hindsight because at the moment you're just living. So in elementary school, I had a very dear friend and she was Indonesian. So again, I grew up outside of Amsterdam in a relatively small town, and we had not just the Indonesian, we had 3 foreign girls or 3 girls not Dutch in our class. And the girl from Indonesia, she just became my best friend. And after school, I went to her place and we didn't get hot chocolate and cookies like we got in my place, but we got rice. And her mom was serving family style food in shared bowls, and we would sit down and eat, and everybody was really relaxed. And it was a very small thing. And I was thinking, I really enjoy this. It's new. It's so different from how it happens in my home. And of course, in hindsight, it's like, this is not my normal. This is new, but yet and exciting. But for her, for my friend, it was her normal. And it's kind of that experience stuck with me and really made me interested in understanding, doing things differently. Again, not having I like hot chocolate and cookies, don't get me wrong, but having rice at a certain moment of time, day, and just very different family circumstances and traveling and I don't know, it just sparked something. I also read a lot of adventure books. My mom was a teacher and she was reading and feeding me adventure books. So Jules Verne's Around the World in 80 Days is something that was like top of my list. So, but that experience going to my friend's house and being in a totally different environment, I enjoy that. So I think that sparked something, and I'm still doing that. I'm almost at 100 countries that I visited. So it's
Wow.
yeah. I
And
just got back from Indonesia actually for the first time.
I'm so curious on how that level of curiosity shows up today in the nature of your work, whether it's individuals, whether it's companies. Share with us a little bit more about your approach and how you pull it forward. So if I'm somebody who reached out to you and I'm like, I'm that CEO, like, oh my gosh, my footprint's not getting the right message. Like, tell me more how what that would look like and feel like from your vantage point.
Yeah. Well, it's really about thinking through that everybody has a unique story. So we work a lot with people who think they're average, or they think, my story is not that great. Who is interested in my story? So those obstacles that we have. And because I've lived in different places, I've interviewed 900 CEOs and business owners. I've met so many different people. I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro last July, and the 9 guys who were our team, our Sherpas, and our in 6 days we became family. I'm just interested in people. I'm interested in understanding what drives you, what motivates you, and talking to so many people and listening to so many people. When I then work with a CEO or whatever it is and trying to define his or her brand, all those stories help me. It's everybody has it, but every experience I've had everywhere leaves something. It's like, hey, wait a minute, this is what I interviewed somebody in Nigeria and he had a similar thing but different, but wait a minute, how can we, so it's connecting all these dots of all these people, because at the end of the day, we're very different, but we're also very, very similar.
Yes.
And so I don't know, it's the fascination of every person I meet has a story to tell, and I'm just genuinely interested in understanding what drives you, and then translating that into how that can support you to achieve your next goal. So it's not just, oh, this is great, this is your brand, and we leave it at that. No, how can we implement that? How can we create something out of that so that the rest of the world sees that story as well and sees you, let's say, for who you are?
Do you encourage them to create their own stories from the story of themselves? So for example, if you and I did some work and all of a sudden you unlock something in my story that was a real differential, do you encourage then, all right, let's tell some sub stories that support that? Like what is that? Do I have that right?
Yeah. So we usually, when we work with somebody, we start with creating that foundational story. So really, let's say your origin story. And then it's like, once you have that, you start thinking about, okay, so what are the other elements or topics that I want to be known for? How can we elaborate on the different elements, let's say, of my story? So in my case, I keep communicating and creating content about personal branding and crafting your story, etc. But you can find it back in my origin story. It's not some hype that I'm
Right.
flying on. It's that I'm writing. It's really something I do because I'm passionate about it. It's my drive, and that really helps in conveying an authentic message. It's not like, oh, wait a minute, everybody's now an AI. I'm going to do AI too.
Yes.
You have to understand from yourself, why am I doing this? Well, I've always been at the front end of new technologies. I was the first one to have a smartphone. I was the first, whatever it is, I'm playing Atari, whatever that is. So the fact that I'm now also interested in AI is logical. But if it's kind of something like, I'm an AI expert because I've read 10 articles, that doesn't work. So it kind of needs to, it's a holistic approach.
Mm-hmm. Well, I also hear you have a lot of richness that you're bringing to the branding conversation and storytelling conversation because of all of the interviews, all of the world travel, but it's rooted in your sincere curiosity about other people. And so you're probably listening different than the average person and going much deeper than the average person. And you used the word authentic a moment ago, and I would love to hear your take on how is authentic storytelling showing up in a world that is addicted to optimization, AI, just digital noise? How do we stay true to that authentic storytelling?
I think the key is that we should forget about likes and views, and it's not about that. Authentic doesn't mean unfiltered and you go ahead and you share everything and everywhere with everyone. Authentic means truthfully, but it also means intentionally. You have to tell your story or share content, build a digital presence that is based on who you are, not based on what you think others want to read. Everybody's free to use and do whatever they want. But for example, if you look at Instagram, you very often see pieces of life. Nobody shares, oh my God, it was raining, I had to go to the office again today, etc. And I'm really having a bad hair day. We don't share that. We share like, hey, I'm here in Indonesia traveling and life is great, etc. That's what we share, but that's not real life. So we need to realize that there is different worlds. If we are talking about, let's say, the professional branding side, okay, I want to position myself for my next job or in that professional realm, authenticity is essential. If there is a gap between who I am and how I present myself in reality and how I present myself online, at some point, it's going to backfire. Let's say online, I'm extremely extrovert and I'm out there all day, but in reality, I'm an introverted person. So you say, hey, that's great, Anouk, I want to interview you, want to have you on my team. And then we meet and I'm an extreme introvert compared to what you thought. It's not going to work. At some point, you're going to disappoint or whatever it is. And then your whole trust disappears, because if this is not true about you, what else isn't? So I think authenticity rules. It will always win. And it's just be true. I mean, I think it's very simple. And we are so blinded by, I have so many likes, I have so many views. Unless you're an influencer and unless your goal is to have followers of millions, or if you're a famous person, it's a different story. But we're here talking about you and me, let's say, relatively maybe normal people. Not sure if we are, but still, you know what I'm saying. So it's getting a message out there that you can stand behind, that you can say, okay, well, this is me, this is who I am.
Do you find that when you're engaging someone to do this work, if there's a particularly powerful question you ask that you really see, wow, that moves people the most? Is it something they haven't thought of? Is it something that they have thought of, but they haven't really looked at? I'm just sort of curious, because when I think about the work that you're doing, you're really in this transformational space. You're moving people from one place to another, And in order to do that, you have to have some powerful ways to do this. So I was sort of curious if there's any one thing that you're noticing, or even a pattern that this really moves people from point to point.
Maybe a mirror is a good idea or a good answer.
Hmm.
I think I show somebody how they come across. I was just earlier talking to a client and she said, well, you know me, I don't really want to be out there. It's very hard for me to talk about myself. And I asked her, but if you don't tell your story, nobody will, or somebody else will, but it's not going to be the story that you want people to hear about you. So you can continue to not wanting to do this. Fine, I'm not forcing you, but you're losing out on opportunities. And the funny thing is, I do a lot of presentations and I have a recurrent question. 2. The first question is, do you Google yourself on a regular basis? And it grew a little bit over the past years, but still, let's say a third of people Google themselves on a regular basis. A third. Okay, remember this. My next question is, do you Google others? Before you meet someone, after you met someone, before you hire someone, before you go on a date? 99% of people. Wait a minute. If you know that everybody Googles you at some point, but you don't know what you look like online, this is such a, I don't know, a light, in an audience, you see 50 million light bulbs going off at the same time.
So you're saying that people would Google someone else that many more times before they would Google themselves. Ah, I see. Interesting.
And then I say, make the analogy. I say, well, imagine you would come into this meeting today, this event or this conference. You would not look in the mirror. You would not think about what you're going to wear. You don't bring business cards. You don't have prepare. You show up, let's say, almost in your pajamas. Who does that? Nobody. So why do we still do that online? And I think that's such a strong moment where people are like, oh shit, I'm one of those.
And what was the second question you get a lot?
The first, do I really need to do this? So that was somebody I was talking to yesterday, and she said, I'm on several boards and everybody here knows me, and I do need to get on another board. Do you really think I need to work on my LinkedIn and my online presence? Well, you don't have to if you don't want to, but know that you're going to be one of two, probably more, but one of two candidates. Your name and somebody else's name was sent to the executive search firm. So, we have names, we have bios, look good. The next step is that the executive search professional is going to do an online search. If yours is mediocre, the other person, good online presence, who are they going to call first? The other person. And if he or she lives up to the expectations that they created with their online presence, you're not even going to get the call. Okay, let's do this. It's the downside. I don't know why that is, but that's probably how we are wired. It's the downside that gets people to decide, I need to do this.
The downside. So the question that I was thinking about is like, there has to be a little bit inner clarity before people are ready to make the change. And so what you just highlighted are a few examples where those questions prompt what are you actually trying to achieve here? Where are you? Where do you want to go? And what's between you and that place is yourself. You're the one that's got to get yourself there. And I hear so much on how you're sharing here is goes back to that sense of responsibility, own your message, own what you want to say. You decide what gets communicated. You're not allowing other people to decide on your behalf. I love that. I want to move into more of a personal question for around your own story. Is there a part of your story that you rarely talk about, but has really shaped you the most?
I thought about this question and I think I found an answer. There's not a lot that I hide, but from the inside, I'm a rebel. I don't want to fit into any box. I want to do things differently. I want to go to places. I want to do things, have experiences that nobody else dares or does. There is this urge to be different, to do different, to think different, and that rebel is leads me to travel, to go to places. One of my goals is to be able to walk anywhere in the world, literally anywhere in the world, with my hands in my pockets and feel at ease.
Mm.
But being a rebel and not fitting in is something that's not always appreciated. People want to see like-minded people, or it has to be familiar, sort of predictable. So even though it's something that leads every decision that I make, it's not something that I share because I don't want to distance people. But it is a very big part of me. And of course, when you're working with people and they think, okay, well, maybe tomorrow she's going to move to Antarctica. So I keep that. But it's what drives me. It's what shapes everything I do.
I love that. Rebel. So for everybody that's listening and watching, those that might be thinking around, okay, what are the steps I need to take? What are the best practices that come to mind? Thinking about, we talked about brand, we talked about storytelling. What is it that you want to make sure resonates and is actionable from this conversation for anybody listening and watching?
Okay, let's focus on the story. There are three steps how you build up your story. The first part is, let's say, your why. What makes you you? And we talked about this. So what makes me me is I'm just a curious girl and there's nothing I can do about it. I have to travel, I have to, etc. So what is that origin story? You don't need to go back to your childhood. I have another example of a client. She worked at Arthur Andersen at the late 90s. When everything went wrong there, they went bankrupt because of bad governance. That for her was a pivotal moment in her life, her career, where she decided to become a governance expert. She said, I want to make sure that wherever I work in the future, something like this doesn't happen again, because it was so bad. I lost my job. Our clients lost their suppliers. It was so bad. So she's a governance expert at boards, but every person who's on a board is a governance expert. But understanding her origin story, why she does this, makes her, let's say, a more real governance expert or more driven than everybody who's on the board says, yeah, I'm good at governance. And it makes her memorable. So that first part of your story, your origin, what makes you you, why do you do what you do, it has to be personal and memorable. And of course, sometimes if you're not comfortable, just try it. Try it, share it with some people that you trust, and you'll see how they respond. I've become very comfortable telling my story ever since I was a little girl, etc. So you see me as a little girl with a red dress. That's my personal branding color, with a red dress and kind of like running around and being curious, etc. That's who I am. That's my brand. That's the first part. And then you decide if you like me or not. And if you don't, that's fine. It's very important that we realize that our story is ours. And we're not here on this planet to be liked by everybody. We're not here to be eligible for every job. You want to find a job or a board seat or whatever your goal is that fits your brand, that fits you. So by sharing who you are, you'll have a natural selection. Some people will say, oh no, she's from Amsterdam. Her first language is not English. She's not perfect in American English. I don't want to work with her. Well, too bad, or your loss. Some people say, wow, her cultural diversity, that understanding, etc., that international richness, wow, that's something that I can really use. I want to work with her. Fine. But it's my story. And I cannot adjust my story so that you will like me.
Yeah.
Because then I lose my authenticity. So first part of your story, your why, what makes you you. The second part of your story is where you go into your track record, your credentials. So name 3 things, no more, 3 achievements that you want people to know. So in my case, I've interviewed over 900 CEOs and CMOs around the world. I've published, I didn't say the number, 15 books with those stories. And I'm a keynote speaker. Let's say those are 3 of the things. I think that's interesting. If people hear that, they know I've not been doing this. Oh yeah, I can also choose and say I've been doing this since 2002. So I pick, maybe I have a list of 10 credentials, but when I share my story, I pick 3 and no more than 3.
Okay.
3 things you want people to know that give them the sense of trust. So the first part is that they get to know you and like you. The second part, your credentials, is where they trust you. The third part of your story is your benefit, your purpose, your future, where you want to go. So for me, based on being that little girl traveling the world, etc., interviewing all these CEOs, what I'm doing today or what I want to do going forward is support leaders achieve their next professional goals by helping them craft their story. That's the benefit that I bring. That's also my purpose. That last part is also kind of a call to action, because based on that last part, somebody will say, wow, that's interesting. I need that. Can we talk? If you end your story like without, let's say, that future aspiration or that kind of next, there is no reason for people to connect with you. So it's your origin story. So why do you do what you do? Your track record, credentials, and your future aspiration or the benefit that you bring. That's how we build up the story.
That's fantastic. So helpful. My brain is going in 5,000 different directions. I was like, oh, that could use work. That could use work. So my last question for you, Anouk, and you were just starting to go into this direction, but what's next for you? What are you growing and evolving into? What mark do you want to leave on the world?
I think every person that I meet and that I can help clarify what it is that they bring to the world, I think that's my purpose in life, and I want to keep doing that on a bigger scale. Personally, the thing that drives me is curiosity and learning. So I've done several things. I'm 52 years old, almost 53. I want to do many, many more things, but keep combining learning, because I really want to die less stupid than I was born. That's one of my goals in life. So keep learning, curious, but also sharing that fantastic thing of travel and meeting people with others, and hoping to contribute a little bit to bringing us all more close together. And I'm not Miss Universe, but it's kind of like it's so refreshing to meet people who are so unlike you and learn from them and be amazed by how things can be done too, and that our normal is not the normal.
Yeah. there's a sense of awe to what you're doing. And I'm so, so grateful that we were connected. I'm grateful to know that there's someone like you doing this really, really important work in the world, and wishing you just a ton of success in 2026. Are you climbing any other mountains?
No, the Kilimanjaro was a once in a lifetime. No, I'm looking to this year. I would some trips. There is a cruise with 100 friends. That's
Ooh.
next year, and in a Caribbean cruise celebrating one of our friends' special birthday. So that's going to be really, really cool. And this year I don't know yet. I have to find some new things. But the year is young. I just got back from Indonesia, Taiwan, and Vietnam in December. So, but for sure, Rio de Janeiro, because that's where I go at least once a year. That's where I used to live, and I miss a lot.
Well, wishing you so much success and joy and continued extraordinary work. So thank you again for being here with me.
Thank you so much for having me, and I really, really enjoyed our conversation, and I'm looking to many more of you with you, but then probably offline.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Warriors at Work show. If you are interested in learning more about what we do at the Warriors at Work show and platform, be sure to go over to my website, Jeannie Coomber, and subscribe to my monthly Warrior Playbook newsletter. I share everything that I'm up to month by month, as well as some lessons and insights that I've learned. I'm also interested in hearing any feedback you have about this conversation or future topics. So reach out to me directly on jc@jeanniecoomber.com or on LinkedIn. Be sure to tell your friends and your colleagues about this Warriors at Work conversation. Subscribe, review, and rate us. It's the best way to get this message out into the world. Be well.